Hello, good morning and welcome to Thoughts and Updates. You'll see just above there in the canal behind me the cygnets are beginning to grow, and the swan, which nests just across the way from us here, is obviously ready to allow them to flee the coop pretty soon. Reminds me obviously of one of the worst fairy tales from Hans Christian Andersen about the ugly duckling, which is all about beauty on the outside, not necessarily on the inside, but lovely wee story that at the time made a difference to people's lives. And this week I'm back in the house. This is because in Scotland, in certain particular areas, we've seen a spike in COVID related cases ending up in being reported. So we're in partial lockdown, which means that this weekend, where I would have had my youngest up, she's not up, though we went to see her last night down in Ayr. And again, we are having to think very carefully about how we organise things. What has been interesting, I think, over the last few days as well, is reports that the recovery of the economy is happening. Maybe not to the level that it was pre-COVID times, but that there does appear to be a change in the way things are happening. Large businesses are collapsing because of scale and size. That are not coming through the other end, and I wonder if we're going to return to some sort of market economy where we're going to see small businesses beginning to thrive in localised areas because of what has happened to the loss of major high street brands throughout the whole of the United Kingdom. Time will only tell. So this week I've been back on the writing as well, doing some stuff which has been good for Ringside Report. I notice I'm nearly 2,000 Twitter followers, which is just unbelievable. I think I've doubled almost in the last 6-7 months. This is a lot to do with my writing over on Ringside Report, so my thanks to Brad Berkowitz, who is the publisher out there and CEO. A lot of people like that my Mr. Trump series. Today Mr. Trump will be playing a veteran. I'm also looking at Willie Caveman Lee, a boxer of yore, and of course the death recently of Alan Minter, one of our best ever middleweight champions, who unfortunately lost to Marvin Hagler down in London over 3 rounds at a point where greatness beckoned on a world stage, though he'd already achieved that on a domestic one. Also this week, quite unfortunately, I saw that, and I'll come back to him, Danny Williams fighting away across in Russia, and the same bill as Fedor Chudinov, which is a real pity and a real shame. But August has been a very, very busy month in terms of boxing, but September has started to really slow down, which is quite unusual. August is the fallow month normally. In boxing, this is where the natural break happens in terms of seasons. But September seems to be it now, and we're seeing a little bit of a dip in terms of some of the fights, but October is beginning to really busy up, and they're hoping to have crowds back. Not been doing much in terms of theatre. Scottish Football Supporters Association, I've been looking at my reaction to the way in which the Scottish national team has played. I've never been to a live Scottish national game. I've never found the attraction there quite yet, and I have lived through, I was conscious of Scotland playing from 1973 onwards, so there have been plenty of highs as well as, my gosh, plenty of lows. So what have I learned this week? Scottish Football Supporters Association also have been editing Why I Love My Club, which is a book we're going to bring out about how fans have reacted to their club and why they love their club. I've done mine for Ayr United. I was looking at Alloa's, a really interesting story for a woman who's followed the Wasps because of her husband. Her husband is a Celtic fan. They go to the Alloa games together. Dundee United, a really fantastic wee piece from a guy who has really found following Dundee United a bit of a struggle at times, but now they're back in the Premier League, so he's not fooled. All is not particularly good, and that's one of the great things I think about some of these is the love is there, but also the reason for the love has more to do with passion than evidence. And also the Kilmarnock one, and as an Ayr fan, of course, I have made light of some of it with my old friend Willie Ferguson on Twitter, because it didn't come in and crying. Honestly, Willie, it was a fascinating take on how Steve Clarke had rejuvenated the club, and he'd fallen back in love with it, having fallen out of love with it after the tenure, particularly of a couple of managers who didn't quite get Kilmarnock off the bottom rungs of the Premier League. So, great fun, looking for more. So what have I learned this week? One, Danny Williams, back fighting again. He has a record of something like 59-29. It's 29 defeats, now 30. Getting a licence to box is quite easy abroad, across a number of different places. But the World Boxing Authorities, I'm not just talking about the WBA, WBO, IBF, WBC and so on, all should take a little think to themselves. I know that the British and Irish Boxing Association licensed a world title between Danny Williams and Lee McAllister up in Aberdeen last year or the year before, and got rightly pelters for it. Danny Williams shouldn't be boxing. The fact that he knocked out Mike Tyson in a huge shock X number of years ago is no excuse for licensing someone whose time in a boxing ring is long gone. His long-term health is at risk every time he enters a ring, and we should really be thinking of that. And Alex Delmagini, who fought last week, was allowed to fight on in a torturous final round. I think it was the 9th it was stopped. He was allowed to continue by a referee who should be under some kind of investigation. When the editorial of Boxing News brings it to the attention of the world that this guy has not once, not twice, but now 3 times officiated in contests where a boxer could have been seriously hurt because of his inaction. And also, he was the official in the Joseph Parker AJ fight and received huge amounts of criticism for the way that he handled that, particularly I think from Joseph Parker's side. Then, you know, you've got to see some kind of action. So all of that has been difficult, I think, for boxing this last week or fortnight. But the other thing I learnt this week is I've read an article that Donald Trump might win. Now there's a worry. And if I was going to make a prediction, I would suggest that there's a possibility that either Donald Trump is going to win, because the margins required in order to turn over the results in certain states is such that it would need Joe Biden to bite into Donald Trump's lead in some of those states by 6, 7, 8%, which statistically is difficult to contemplate when you look at it mathematically. When you look at it reasonably, and you look at it in terms of the way in which Donald Trump has behaved, it's difficult to contemplate why any swing state would stay red, why it would stay Republican. When you have got people even like Colin Powell, who served under Republican presidents, endorsing the candidacy of Joe Biden, it's hard to understand how it is possible that the American people could go out and vote for a guy who has behaved in the way that he has. So either I think Donald Trump is going to end up winning by a slim majority, or there's a landslide for Biden that is going to destroy the Republican Party in so many ways, because there will be Republicans who will come out and say, I told you so. But where are they? Right now, many of them are Republicans against Trump, R-A-T, rats. And that's potentially how the Republican Party might see them after the election. And because American politics is driven so much, or it would appear to be driven so much, by poll ratings and so on, it's hard and it's difficult to understand from across here how they're going to unseat Donald Trump if in some areas, I can't remember which state it was, he had crept back and was now in the lead against Joe Biden. The death rate in America for COVID, the lack of economic bounce in America due to COVID and Donald Trump, the lack of a wall being built in the Mexican border, despite Donald Trump's bold plans, should be enough. Never mind the misogyny, the lying and all the rest of it. But there's no fool like an old fool. And if America votes on the 3rd of November to retain the incumbent president, I don't know what the world is going to react like. So, with that in mind, and until the next time, where if we are out of lockdown, I'll be running about trying to find somewhere else. It's bye for now. Bye bye.